Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I figured I would go through the books that are on my physical TBR. I don't have that many, fortunately, but I am trying to get it down to 0 so that every new book that I buy is the book that I will like immediately start reading so they don't like keep piling up. But that's kind of going to be a project for 2021 to get these down to 0. Back in 2015, there was a Twitter, which was 0 by 16, which was basically a project where you tried to get your physical TBR down to 0 by the end of the year, which I believe I successfully did, probably using a lot of unhauling. But yeah, I wanted to go through the books that are on my physical TBR, and I am going to go through them in order of how excited I am to read them. This is just like how I'm feeling personally right now. They might fluctuate. So right now I'm super into fantasy, so I really want to read a lot of fantasy, which is why you'll see fantasy is really near the top of my list. So it's no slight to any of these books. I'm sure that they're all going to be great, but this is just how excited I am to read them right now. So let's get started. Okay, so the first book on my TBR is The Beautiful by Renee Audier. This follows our main character, who I guess she gets taken in by this convent in New Orleans, and then she gets approached by this like dangerous dude from some underworld group known as Le Coeur des Lions. So this is one that I bought probably around a year ago, or whenever it first came out, and I was excited to read it because it was like the new big thing, and because apparently it has vampires involved in it. But then a lot of people said that they didn't like it because they felt that the vampire thing was underutilized or wasn't brought up as much as they had been hoping it would, because it kind of had been, I don't know if it was marketed as or if it was just hyped as a new Twilight, which I never read Twilight. I started the first book and I just couldn't stand Bella, so I stopped reading them. But I have watched all the movies like 15 times because they're so fun. Like, they're not good movies, but they're just like so entertaining. I love watching them. Like, if that's ever on TV, I'm like, yeah, sure, let's watch Twilight. So I don't know, I just can't stand Bella in the books. Like, I think Kristen Stewart is a way better Bella than like book Bella. I don't know why, she just doesn't annoy me as much, which is probably an unpopular opinion, but whatever. So this one is at the bottom of my list just because of the fact that I haven't honestly heard that great reviews about it, but I bought it, so I want to give it a shot. So that's why this is on the list. Okay, next up on my list is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. This I got because Emma from Drinking by My Shelf, she's one of my favorite booktubers. I'm obsessed with her videos. Whenever I see them on my subscription feed, I'm like, yep, gotta watch that first. So this one, I guess, follows our main character Kaya, who is known as the Marsh Girl, and this guy ends up dead, like this handsome guy from whatever town she's from, which I believe is in North Carolina, ends up dead, and people kind of suspect her of being the one who murdered him. But I don't think it's actually involved that much about the murder. Like, it's not a mystery. Like, it might be a mystery, but I don't think the mystery has too much to do with it. But it seems to be mostly about Kaya like kind of living in the marsh, and then these two guys show up and like are lured by her like wild, weird beauty, and I guess that's what it's about. I think the writing's gonna be really flowery though, which is not my thing, which is why this is at the bottom of the list as well, because I just think that it's gonna be too flowery for me. I'm not a big fan of like really beautiful lyrical writing, so I honestly think this could probably be like a 1 star for me, or a DNF, or it could be, I could be in love with it and give it a 5 star. This is a very like, I feel like it's going to be polarizing for me, so I'm either going to switch one way at a 5 star or at a 1 star / DNF. So we'll see. I'm still going to read it, of course, because I bought it. I feel like this one's probably pretty expensive, even though it was 30% off at Target. So that's next on my list. Next up we have The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This one I had taken off of my TBR and was going to unhaul, but then I was gonna read it for Brit from Basically Brit's 24-hour readathon, which I ended up like participating in for like 5 pages of The Gilded Wolves. So it was just not my day. I think I was hungover. I wasn't in the mood to read, so I didn't. But Brit is reading this book right now, and I think I want to give it a go because this is another one that's very polarizing. People love it or people hate it. There's not really that much in between. This group of kids are like, I just hear that they're pretentious all the time, but I think they're part of this like literature group at their prestigious school, and they kind of are enamored by their professor, and it just follows them. And then one of these characters, I don't know if they're in the group, but ends up dead, and so it's kind of like a mystery around that. But people say that they're just like too pretentious. None of the characters are likable, which I don't think I've ever read a book with like like where people describe all of the characters as pretentious. I'm sure I've read some pretentious characters, but I think this one's just gonna be very polarizing. I think I started listening to the audiobook at one point, but I think it's one that I'm gonna want to read physically rather than listening to the audiobook. So it is definitely still on my TBR, but this one is nearer to the bottom of my list because I want to read it because of the fact that so many people like hate it and so many people love it. So that's why it's near the bottom, but not like at the dead bottom. And I think that the writing is gonna fit more for me than like Where the Crawdad Sings. So next on the list. Next we have I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. The reason why this is near the bottom of the list is because I've already read this book, or I read parts of it when I was in high school because it was required reading, but I just didn't read any of my required reading in high school. But I do remember reading parts of this book, so it's on my TBR because I don't remember much about it. And also I'm trying to do this video where I'm trying to read books that I was supposed to read in high school but never did, so that's why this is on my TBR. I really like this cover too. Look at her beautiful photograph on the back. And I have read poetry by Maya Angelou, which I've really loved, so I wanted to get her book and read this one. So hopefully I'll read this one soonish. Next we have Full Disclosure by Cameron Garrett. This follows our main character who is HIV positive, and I believe it just follows her relationship with her, with I think 2 people at her school. One is a male who she's had a crush on, but then another character, love interest, is a female. I believe that's what this is about. This is near the bottom of the list. I mean, it's kind of like in the middle of my list, just because of the fact that I don't really know that much about it, and it was more of a cover buy. Like, I just think that the cover is absolutely stunning. But since I bought it, I have heard more people talking about it, and from the people that I know who have read it, they've all rated it 5 stars. So I'm really, really excited to get to this one. I'm hoping I'll get to this one soon. Next up, we have Beach Read by Emily Henry. This gets this place in my list because it's a summer book and it's like the coldest part of the year right now where I'm living. So that's the only reason why this is near the bottom of the list. Or actually, this is like literally the midway point, I think. But this follows our 2 main characters who were kind of like enemies or rivals in school. They're both writers. The male character writes literary fiction and the female writes romance, and so they end up living, I think, next to each other in beach houses, and then they decide that they're going to write in each other's genre. So he's going to write a romance, she's going to write a literary fiction, and they start going on these like kind of dates so they can research for their books, essentially. So she'll plan something that kind of is maybe something that you see a lot in romance, and he'll pick something that I guess you would see in a literary fiction, which I don't even know what that would be because literary fiction is literally boring. Sorry, I said what I said. And next up we have The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. This is a high fantasy about this guy who is fighting in a war, essentially. And so this is also a story about revenge because I think his entire family is murdered and he wants to get revenge, so he goes into training to become like a warrior, essentially, and that's what that's about. I have heard mixed things about this one as well. I've heard that it's very military oriented, so a lot of it is about the war and all of the battles and stuff. I actually did read the first chapter of this, and holy crap, that like really goes from 0 to 100 real quick. So I don't know why I didn't like continue reading it. I think I just wasn't in the mood for high fantasy or fantasy, like big thick fantasy at that point, but I am now. So I think this is one that I don't think I'm gonna read it this year. I think I'm gonna wait until 2021, but I hopefully will be able to get to it in January. So I am really excited about this one. And then we have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. This I have just been putting off because I don't think I'm gonna like it, which is really sad to say. This is written by one of my favorite authors. V.E. Schwab wrote my favorite trilogy of all time, the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy. I'm so excited for like the second trilogy in that story. Oh my god, I'm so anticipating it. But this follows our main character Addie LaRue, who every time she meets someone, they like instantly forget her when she leaves the room, and that's because she made a deal with the devil, I guess. But then she meets some guy who remembers her, and that's essentially what this is. The reason why I don't think I'm gonna like this is because people say it's very slow moving and it's very character oriented, which is not something I typically like in books. I need a balance of plot and character. If it's all character related, I fall off, I get bored, I DNF. So that's why I don't think I'm gonna like this, honestly. Which you would think that it would be lower on my list, but It's higher on my list because it's V.A. Schwab and I love her and I want to give it a chance, but it's not at the top because I just think I'm gonna hate it, which is really unfortunate. So maybe if I go in with super low expectations, I'll end up loving it, but we'll see. I have heard there's some amazing quotes in this, which I do appreciate amazing quotes, but I just don't know if it's gonna be for me. So keep an eye out if I do some wrap-ups or something, and I'll let you know if I like it or not. All right, then we have Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is another book kind of like Addie LaRue, which I don't know if I'm gonna like because people who typically like Leigh Bardugo's other books, I feel like this falls more on their like least favorite Leigh Bardugo books ranking. This follows Alex Stern. Alex gets invited to join a secret society and it kind of goes from there. This one I'm putting higher than Addie LaRue because I haven't heard that this one is super character oriented, which is why I didn't rate Addie LaRue higher than this one. But this one I have also heard mixed things about. But the thing is, I'm not the biggest Leigh Bardugo fan. I like her books. I think I've rated most of her books 4 or 5 stars. But if I had reread them now, I probably wouldn't like them as much. Like, I think that the Shadow and Bone series is pretty boring, pretty generic. If I rated them high, it's probably because I felt bad rating them lower, like back when I read them. I feel like I used to be very lenient, or I used to be very like giving with my 5 stars. I was just like, yeah, I liked it, 5 stars. Now I'm much more selective with my 5 stars, but I think maybe I'll love this because I'm not the biggest Leigh Bardugo fan. I loved Six of Crows. I think I gave that one 5 stars and that would probably stick, but at Crooked Kingdom, I think I gave 3 stars. I thought it was pretty boring. So I'm hoping that this is one that I'll like. I just need to like take the time to read it. I feel like most of the books that I've been reading this year are shorter, like around the 200 to 300 mark. So if a book is over like 500 pages, I don't know how long this one is. If this one is over 500. No, it's under 500, but it just feels like a very dense book, so I haven't really been prioritizing those this year. So we'll see. This could go either way. Good, bad, I don't know. And then we have another high-ass fantasy, and it is like the biggest book I think that I will have ever read once I finish it. This or maybe It by Stephen King, but it is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. My history with Brandon Sanderson. I read the first Mistborn book, really liked it, gave 5 out of 5 stars, but for some reason I never continued with the trilogy, which I think at some point I will do. I think I'm gonna do a video about series that I have finished and want to continue, and then another video about series that I started but won't finish. So that series by Brandon Sanderson is definitely on my list of books that I want to definitely continue, or series I want to continue. And then I've also read Skyward by Brandon Sanderson, which I also loved. 5 out of 5 stars. I definitely need to read the sequel, but I have heard that it doesn't follow the exact same group of characters. Like, our main character kind of switches to a different group, kind of. So we'll see if I get to that one. It is kind of lightly on my TBR, but not like super high up there. But this is just a high fantasy. I don't really know too many specifics about it, so I'm not going to go super deep into it, but I guess it follows multiple characters, multiple POVs. I think one is like a younger girl, one is a guy who cries when he kills people, which is what I heard from Reagan in her previous video, Reagan from Peru's Project, so that's why I just said that. But yeah, I think this is gonna be great. I really mesh with Brandon Sanderson's writing. I find it fast-paced, easy to read, and yeah, it's intimidating because it's so long. This is over 1,000 pages, 1,005 pages, I think, and it's part of a series that's gonna be like 12 books or 10 books or something like that. And there's only 4 out so far, and they're all this thick. So I feel like once all of the books are out, it's gonna be like a stack that's like 10 feet high. But no, that wouldn't make sense because each book is not a foot. But you know what I mean. It's gonna be a big ass stack of books. But I'm just really pumped to read this because I know that I'll love Brandon Sanderson's writing style because I've previously liked his other books, which are also fantasy. Next up, we have a book. This is my most recent purchase, and it is The Office, the untold story of the greatest sitcom of the 2000s, which I highly agree with. The Office is my favorite show of all time. It will never be topped, never be beat. I love that show more than life itself. I've rewatched it a million times. I'm wishing for the box set for Christmas, the Blu-ray versions, because it's it's going to be off of Netflix at the beginning of next year, which is a tragedy because that's the easiest way to watch it. But this is just written in interview style, talking about the show. So it's at the top of my list because I love The Office and I want to read it. So that's why it's here. Okay, then next up is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. I believe this features our main character, Eleanor Oliphant, who struggles with mental illness. I don't know too much else other than that about this book. This would be lower on my list, except for I'm about to start reading it today, so I don't know much about it, but I have heard really great things. The rating on Goodreads is super, super high, so I think it's gonna be really good. I have it out from my library as an audiobook. I might listen to it as well, switch back and forth. I'm not sure, but I have heard that this is excellent, and I think that, and also it's a Reese's Book Club pick, so that's always exciting. Love her. But not much to say about this. It's just at the top of my list because I'm gonna start reading it, like, today. And finally, the book that I am most hyped to read is Exile by Shannon Messenger. This is the second book in the Keeper of the Lost Cities series. I think there's like 9 books out right now. They're all pretty fat, but this is a middle grade series about our main character who finds out that she's a fairy, and so she starts going to this like magical school, and she makes awesome friends. She gets adopted by this family who are really sweet, and I guess each book just follows a different adventure. The first book was one of the first books that I read this year, and it's become one of my favorite middle grade books of all time. I love the characters, love the writing, love the plot. I just thought it was so cute, and so I definitely want to continue with the series. So that's why this is number 1 on my list of books that I want to get to, because I just love the character. I feel like I forgot so much about what happened in the book already, but I love her and her relationship with her friend, which I don't think is this guy. I think this is another character, but I do like this character. He's just not my favorite out of her friends. So I cannot wait to continue with this series. It's so freaking good. So yeah, that is it for the books that are on my physical TBR. I am expecting hopefully to get one book for Christmas. There's only one book that I wished for, and that is House of Leaves by Mark something or other. So hopefully I'll get that for Christmas, and that'll be added to this list. But not including that book, we have 13 books on my physical TBR. I do have a lot of books on my Kindle, which I would love to do a video for as well if you guys are interested. I would love to show you guys what I have on there. That's probably another additional like 20 books or so. So I do have a good amount of books on my TBR overall. If you want to look at my Goodreads, I have it linked down below. Everything that's on my to-read list is something that I own, other than books that I potentially am getting from the library, and books that are not out yet. So you can look there to see what else is on my TBR, but that's gonna be it for this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed. Let me know what your top priority is for the books on your TBR, and if you want to, you can leave me how many physical books are on your TBR, because I always love watching TBR videos. And actually, if you have a video about your TBR, also list that down below in the comments. I would love to watch it. But that is it for this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time.